I've clicked onto the global tropical overview for August the 12th, 2024. It'll be August the 13th in Japan. As is always the case in these videos, the thoughts pressure are just mine, and if you're going to make any decisions ahead of any tropical cyclones, look to the local office, local emergency management, and local tropical cyclone warning center. We have a couple systems to talk about today in the tropics. We're going to be first starting in the West Pacific as we have Tropical Storm Ampil, if I'm saying that name correctly, which is going to be moving up towards Japan. I know you just dealt with Maria, but we're getting another one up there as we go throughout the course of this week, and it could get stronger than Maria did on approach. We're also going to be talking about Tropical Storm Ernesto now in the North Atlantic. That will be after Ampil, so I'll leave a timestamp to that, but that one is going to be bringing impact to the Caribbean as we go throughout this week and could impact Bermuda as we go into the latter half of the week and into the weekend time frame. Let's go ahead and get started. This is Tropical Storm Ampil as the sun is about to rise over the region. The system is doing fairly well for itself. You can see that we have what appears to be a well-defined low-level center, maybe a bit offset of the convection, which is maybe a little bit further southwest. You might be able to pick out some northwesterly flow in the upper level system, cirrus clouds here showing up on the satellite imagery. This is an effect of an upper low that we have off towards the northeast of the system. We also have another tropical storm over here, but this might be bringing a little bit of northerly flow over the storm, which might be bringing just a little bit of shear and offsetting that center a little bit from the convection. Now you'll notice that this is also sort of wedged in between two upper lows. We have this one here. We have another one over here over southern Japan. And what these are doing is these are bringing a little bit of shear, certainly, but they're also helping with outflow channels. So you can see this one off towards the northwest is aiding in poleward outflow, and we're actually getting some support of, say, equatorward outflow from the one off towards the east. So while there is a little bit of shear, these lows are likely aiding the system a little bit. And these lows are both going to be backing towards the north and west over the next couple of days. This one is likely to remain fairly strong, not really forecast to decay all too much, but this one, you can already tell it's not all too strong compared to this one off towards the west, and this is going to be weakening as it does move northwest. And while it may bring some continued shear for the system as it does come up north, the shear is not forecast to be strong, and after the low decays, we're likely going to have a favorable upper-level environment, and that should allow intensification to occur as it comes up towards central Japan, and this one could be much stronger than what Maria was as it came ashore yesterday. Now you can see this evolution of the upper level pattern in the GFS ensemble. This is the upper level wind showing you what we were showing on water vapor with this upper low off towards the east, upper low off towards the west. Our storm is here. And as we go in time, you'll see both of these lows back off towards the west. Now this one over here towards the east of the system right now is a little bit more progressive. It gets a little bit more progress west as it gets towards Japan. Now, like I said, it will likely bring a little bit of shear. We do have perhaps some southwesterly flow coming over the system, and the system is moving off towards the north. So this would likely be a little bit of shear onto the system. But what you'll notice is this low is continuing to weaken. And as we go further into the weeks, this is by Thursday local time, now the low has fully decayed. And now we have this favorable upper level high pattern right over the storm. And this would be favoring intensification of the storm as it approaches the central coast of Japan, likely somewhere around Tokyo. That's the current expectation right now. And you can see this evolution as well on the European model. You can see that upper low moves off towards the northwest, towards central Japan, and eventually it decays away, and we're left with a favorable upper level pattern set for intensification of our system. And you can see that the oceans are also favorable for this. This is our storm. It hasn't updated on a TCF to the name Ampil, but you can see as it moves north, we've got deeper oceanic heat content here, and this will also favor that intensification. And you can see on the GFS that intensification taking place quite clearly on the model, bringing it down pretty intense. This could be a pretty strong typhoon as we go into, Thursday, Friday local time when it comes to central Japan. So this is certainly something to watch. I know we just dealt with Maria, but certainly something to watch and pay very close attention to as it does come north. Now you'll see in this run, it does graze the coastline of central Japan, and there's a little bit of uncertainty on exactly how much interaction we're going to get with land with this system. This is the low-level steering plot from the GFS. This is looking not too far off the surface. The steering pattern's there. And we have a bit of a complex pattern here. We've got several areas of low pressure active in this part of the West Pacific. We've got Maria sitting now in the Sea of Japan. We've got another tropical storm off to the northeast of Ampil. And this is all surrounded by a high pressure system off towards the east. Now, the expectation right now for models is that these lows here with Maria and our other tropical storm are forecast to keep this bridge fairly set east. So we're not expecting this to build further north and force the system fully into, say, the Sea of Japan like Maria got forced into there. We're expecting this to have an edge set, and it's likely to recurve at some point in this track. But the uncertainty is exactly when does that recurve happen? And it's dependent on the strength of these two lows. You can see on the GFS that these lows weaken pretty quickly. In fact, maybe we get another little tropical system out of that, which helps keep this edge set maybe a little bit more. And as a result, we get the system not coming directly into Japan, but really just grazing the coastline. But there's some sensitivity to this, as you can probably see from this. We could have, say stronger lows here that keep the edge set a little bit further east, which allows the system to maybe stay offshore. That would probably be the best case scenario for Japan as it does come through. But if these lows are weaker, say this next system that does form behind our current tropical storm northeast of Ampil, say that is weaker, or maybe it just doesn't form as well as the GFS wants, then you could have this set a little bit further west and maybe get the system to be forced a little bit further into Japan. And that is, of course, has huge implications on who gets the worst impacts. That could be ranging for, areas south and west of Tokyo to be getting the brunt of the typhoon, or this could be looking at Tokyo itself getting the brunt of this typhoon as it comes through. So this is going to be a little bit of a sensitive forecast, and we're going to be having to iron out some details as we go throughout the next several days. This is the current Joint Typhoon Warning Center forecast, and they're taking a little bit east approach from the GFS. So you can see it coming up here into central Tokyo and around this vicinity and coming just offshore of Tokyo. Now, you can see that even if it is offshore, we do still get some stronger winds ashore. You could maybe get on the direct coastline in this kind of a track, some typhoon force winds coming ashore. But in this main forecast here, we do have the center remaining offshore. And you can see, though, the uncertainty with this cone showing potential tracks like we talked about being offshore or onshore. So it's certainly something to pay attention to here in central Japan. And I'll try my best to have more videos as we go throughout the rest of this week. The schedule's a bit iffy, but if I can't, I'll have some updates on my Twitter page, which you can find in the description if you scroll down a little bit there. All right, we're now going to move to Tropical Storm Ernesto. This is newly named in the Atlantic today. Now, the last time we talked about this system, it was an invest. Yesterday, it got designated as a potential tropical cyclone 4 or 5. Sorry, I messed up designations there. And now it's a tropical storm. And we have had recon data in today that supports this. As you can see that in their flights, they found some stronger tropical storm force winds on the north side of this, which is to be expected. That's usually what happens in these types of systems when they're in the tropical Atlantic like this. But we started to see in more recent passes some westerly winds south of the center of circulation, which appears to be about here, where that 10-11 tag is on this map. And this is more of a compact area of low pressure, which is needed for a tropical cyclone. And we also have that convection that you can also see on the satellite imagery sustaining right over that. It's not overly organized, but it meets a criteria to be a tropical cyclone. And as such, the NHC has named this Tropical Storm Ernesto. Now we're seeing the evolution of this system now that's becoming a tropical cyclone, becoming a little bit more favorable for further intensification of the low. If we look in water vapor imagery, we can see that today, compared to the past couple of days, we're now getting more curvature in the cirrus clouds aloft. And this is the upper level high pressure system that we talked about a couple of days ago, forming as the system was moving towards the Caribbean islands. And this is a more favorable, more low shear environment for the system, as right now we've had a little bit of mid to upper level easterly shear because we've had for the past couple of days stronger easterly flow aloft. But this is creating more of a low shear environment. And we're also allowing the system to breathe in a way. It's good to have this divergence, the wind moving away from the storm, because you can allow the thunderstorms to effectively burst and they're not being held back by, say, heat being kept in just above them. It's being released in an efficient manner. Now, the good news is here for the Caribbean islands, we're not expecting rapid intensification here. While it is a tropical storm, the system is still a bit broad. If we look at the visible imagery again, you'll still see southerly winds way down here east of the Windward Islands, and you might even be able to pick out some northerly winds as well coming into the central Lesser Antilles. And this is outlining the still broad wave axis that we have that's generally like this. So while we do have this compact area of low pressure developing on the northern end of this, it is still a bit broad. It's going to take a bit for this system to contract down into a smaller size so then it can build intercore structure and intensify. And this process is probably going to take about a day or more as it traverses through the Caribbean islands. So the expectation here is not for rapid intensification. We're certainly going to see it intensify a little bit. We could absolutely get, a formidable tropical storm coming through the Caribbean islands, but rapid intensification does not seem much on the table here in the Caribbean. After the Caribbean, it does become much more of a potential, but for land impacts in the Caribbean, we're not looking at that happening. And the main impact here will likely be storm surge and rainfall across these islands. Now, if we look at the GFS low-level steering plot, and this is also showing low-level vorticity or spin, you can see that broad axis that we outlined on visible imagery. Now, the GFS might be a little bit too weak on this vorticity maximum on the north side, which may come in a little bit important for the exact track through the Caribbean, as the GFS does have this coming maybe a little bit further west than, say, the official forecast has right now, but that also could just be, normal track uncertainties that we have at this range. Now, you'll see that as it moves through the Caribbean islands, we begin to see this become more circular. So we're not broad, we're more circular, more compact into a concentrated area of vorticity. And once that happens, then we start seeing the system begin to intensify. And this right now is expected to be once it passes, say, the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Once it gets north of there, we'll likely see it become a hurricane, and by then we could see more significant intensification take place. But because of that broad center, we're not going to see a lot of rapid development, unlike what the GFS had shown, say, a couple of days ago. It has trended a bit weaker on the storm as it comes through this Caribbean islands than we've had in runs, say, a couple of days ago. And you can see the impacts that we're expecting here in the Caribbean. This is the rainfall forecast showing quite a bit of rainfall across the Leeward Islands, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. We've got potential for 6 inches or more across this region. That's over 150 millimeters of rainfall across this entire stretch of islands. And even in Puerto Rico, this is particularly dangerous for you all because you have that higher terrain on the south side of the island. That could really maximize totals there. And you could have 8 inches or more across that island as the system does pass through. Now, Hispaniola, it's a bit dependent on exactly how far west it comes. If it does, say, pass right over Puerto Rico or east of Puerto Rico, your rainfall totals will likely be minimized, but you can still see potential for 100 to 150 millimeters there. But if it does come, say, where the GFS shows, which is more west Puerto Rico, eastern Hispaniola, then we could increase the potential rainfall here, maybe to increase totals of 6 to 8 inches or 150 to 200 millimeters across portions of Hispaniola. But this will not be the only water impact we have across here. We're also looking at storm surge impacts. Now, this will only show for the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. You can see 1 to 3 feet expected in all the areas in blue here. But we could have this across all of these islands, stretching from, say, Martinique all the way to Hispaniola as the system does come through. And while that's not a lot of storm surge, it still can be significant. You certainly don't want to be out there, say, on the beach when it does come in, as storm surge is a very powerful force. Don't want to underestimate the power of water, especially in storm surge form. It's the #1 causing of a killer in tropical cyclones. Now, after the Caribbean, we begin to see the system recurve in this forecast. You can see the GFS comes north of Puerto Rico. Right now, for the Turks and Caicos and Bahamas, we're looking good. The system has trended east. You know, we talked about a couple days ago, if it came over Hispaniola, we could still have impacts in, say, the Turks and Caicos and Bahamas. We've seen trends east over the past couple of days, and that's likely because we have a stronger trough now modeled than a couple of days ago off the US East Coast. This will likely be able to pick up the system more effectively and bring it into the central Atlantic. Now, for Bermuda, this is not good news because now we're looking at the system recurving and potentially coming right through this island. Now, the good news is you're a small island. So, you know, it's very hard for the system to hit you directly, but the likelihood of, say, tropical storm force winds has gone up quite significantly over the past couple of days. Now, I mentioned that we're likely to see, you know, a more likely potential of intensification, greater intensification that is after the Caribbean islands. And you'll see that as a system, like I showed you, gets more defined in its center on the GFS, we begin to get a very favorable upper level pattern. This is showing you the troughs in yellow. So if we go back to the beginning here, we've got this little trough here over Bermuda, stretching down into portions of the Caribbean. A very weak trough right here. And this deeper blue is the upper level high pressure system that's forming over Ernesto right now. Now, this upper level high is going to be able to fight off this trough. This trough is not too strong, so it's going to be able to manipulate it a bit. And you can see that as it comes north of the Caribbean islands, we have a very healthy upper level high pressure system draped right over our storm. And this will likely favor intensification as it recurves off towards the north and northeast. And right now, guidance is getting pretty strong on how much intensification we get. Some are even saying that this could be our next major hurricane for the hurricane season in the Atlantic. Now, as it goes further northeast, we're likely to get interaction with a deeper upper trough here that's going to be sitting over the western Atlantic over the next few days. Now, this is a bit sensitive as there's some timing uncertainties when it comes up this way, and this may be the determining factor for if we get the system tracking a little bit further away from Bermuda or we get more of a direct hit. You can see on the European, this system is a little bit faster. It tracks east of Puerto Rico, so it makes that turn a little bit faster on the run. In this scenario, it's moving pretty much with this trough, and this allows the storm to track pretty far southeast of Bermuda. You may still get some impacts here, but the core is 240 kilometers away from the island. This would be probably the best case scenario here, getting the system to track further southeast of it in line with this trough. That would likely limit the amount of strong impacts you get in Bermuda. But the uncertainty comes in exactly when does it make that turn. The GFS, like I showed you, makes that turn a little bit later, more western Puerto Rico, eastern Hispaniola. And this very subtle difference in the turn means that it's a little bit slower. And this trough is moving very fast. You can see that it's swinging into Atlantic Canada pretty fast on this model run. So that little difference in time with that timing of recurvature means that on the GFS, it's a little bit too slow for the trough. And it actually begins to move out before it fully catches the system. And behind it, we get a little bit more high pressure building, which forces the system a little bit further towards the west. It's not all too much, but it's just enough to get the system tracking very close to Bermuda. Now, in this case, now we're on the opposite side of Bermuda. We're now, the core is about 240 kilometers in the opposite direction. And you can see the sensitivity here. We've got tracks that are really keeping Bermuda right in the middle of things. And I'm sure if you're in Bermuda, this is sort of an uncomfortable look. Now, you all are usually very prepared for tropical cyclones. I will say if I was going to go through a hurricane in an island in the middle of the Atlantic, I'd probably choose Bermuda. They are pretty well prepared. But still, this could be an intensifying still storm when it does come through. It's been a while since we've had something like that. Something that, I'm trying to think of when the last one may have been, maybe Paulette 2020. That was a category 2, I believe, when it came in. And this is still something to pay very close attention to in Bermuda as it does come through. Now, we'll iron out the details on exactly do we get landfall here or not over the next few days. Really, once we get to, say, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Once we get it to come north in that recurvature, that will probably give us more certainty on exactly what we could expect here in Bermuda. So you can see right now in the Hurricane Center forecast, you're right in the center, with the GFS and European being on either side of the island. And this could mean the difference between, hurricane impacts and just tropical storm impacts. So certainly something to watch in Bermuda, as we could be looking at our first hurricane hit, and hopefully only hurricane hit if it does hit this hurricane season. But that's all that I've got for today on Ernesto. Similar to what I said with Ampil, I'll try to have more videos out as we go throughout the rest of this week. My schedule's a bit iffy, and if I don't have any videos out and if I'm not able to make them, I'll put some updates on Twitter, which you can find in the description. I have it down there towards the bottom of it. That's all for today. Stay safe in Japan and the Caribbean as our storms come through. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching.